Hey guys, this is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our DraftKings quarterback videos for week 10. There's four guys that we're going to be talking about. As always, I'm going to give you three of my top plays for the week, and then one guy who's a little bit of a flyer who I think could be a big upside play in GPPs. So let's get down to the slideshow and get into the guys who we're looking at for this week. These are the four guys who I have on my short list. Blake Bortles from the Jacksonville Jaguars at 5,600, Andy Dalton from the Cincinnati Bengals at 6,500, Derek Carr from the Oakland Raiders at 5,800, and Kirk Cousins is going to be my flyer at 5,200 this week. Bortles faces the Baltimore team, who has allowed the second most fantasy points to the quarterback position so far this year. He's in a game that has a high total at 49, so we should see some points put up on the board. And he's the underdog in this game, so he should be trailing and throwing late, which gives him a chance to rack up some garbage time points. His price on DraftKings is only 5,600, but he's been averaging 21.5 fantasy points per game. If he's able to do that anywhere close to that here, he's going to be getting you about 4 points per $1,000 of cost, which would put you on pace to have a score close to 200 and probably cash in most of your tournaments and definitely get your double ups and your 50-50s. Now, Baltimore has a really good run defense, and when teams try to attack them, the way they usually do it is through the air. It's not that their passing defense is really that bad. It's just that it's the path of least resistance. So teams do try to put the ball in the air as often as they can against Jacksonville because it's usually the best way for them to move the ball. Now, like I said, it's not that Baltimore's defense is horrible, but if that's the way that teams are attacking them, you're going to see more passing attempts from the quarterback, and that's one of the reasons why we really like Bortles here today. Besides the fact that he has two really good receivers on the outside in Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson, who have both been putting up pretty good numbers this year. The next guy we're going to talk about is Andy Dalton. Dalton faces a Houston team who has given up the 11th most fantasy points to quarterbacks so far this year. His team is expected to score 27.5 points in this game, and he's actually somebody who's been averaging 23 fantasy points per game so far through the early part of the season. He has thrown 3 or more TDs in half of his starts so far in 2015, and we do like him in this matchup because Houston plays at a very high pace. They're going to throw the ball a lot, especially now that they no longer have a running game with Arian Foster out. So at the beginning of the season, when we saw Houston playing without Foster, we saw them throwing it 50 times, being one of the highest paced teams in the league, and both them and the teams that they were playing against putting up some decent numbers. So I do like Andy Dalton's chances of outperforming here. I think he could come up with a big game, a couple touchdown passes, 250 to 300 yards, and be one of the top quarterback options that we have on the slate. The next guy we're going to talk about, we're going to go back to the Derek Carr well that we talked about last week. He's got a tougher test this week against the Vikings defense. The Vikings are good versus the run, and Latavius Murray is kind of banged up, so I think they're going to have to go through the air this game. Amari Cooper is going to absolutely own Xavier Rhodes. Now, this is something I want to talk about. Xavier Rhodes is somebody who has one of the worst grades from Pro Football Focus on cornerbacks so far this year. He's already been lit up by a whole bunch of receivers, including Alshon Jeffries recently. And in the last 3 weeks, we've seen Derek Carr throw for 923 yards and 11 touchdowns. This Raiders passing attack is on point right now. They're doing really, really well. And I think that's the way they're going to have to go ahead and attack this Minnesota team. If that's the way that they're going to go ahead and have to attack Minnesota, if getting Derek Carr at 5,800, throwing 3 touchdowns or more per week and 300 yards over the last 3 weeks, that's a really good value price that you're getting on a guy who you're expecting to see throw the ball a lot this week. Again, like I said, the Cooper Rhodes matchup is something that absolutely favors Oakland, and I think they're going to see a lot of targets this week. I love Amari Cooper, and I love Derek Carr with him. I think that could be one of the top stacks this week that helps you win all the money. The last guy we're going to talk about is Kirk Cousins. Now, Cousins is the top cheap flyer of the week for me. Matches up with the Saints defense that has allowed the most fantasy points to quarterback. They have not allowed less than 20 points in any game so far this season. And in 3 weeks in a row, they have allowed a 300-yard passer. The total here in this game is 50. Yes, the Saints are favored, but that only means that Cousins is going to have garbage time and is going to be throwing the ball a lot late, which means we should actually even see more attempts than we normally see out of him. Now, I realize if you look at his numbers, 200, 250 yards, 1 touchdown, it's not all that spectacular. But this is a game where he projects as a guy who's probably going to get closer to his ceiling. And we've seen his ceiling already. His ceiling is 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, as he did a couple weeks ago when he was leading the comeback. So with Washington playing a little bit better and the passing game kind of clicking, Deshaun Jackson back in town as well, I think this could be a game where Kirk Cousins has some upside, and you're getting him pretty cheap. You're able to fit a lot of studs in there, and he does have the best matchup against quite possibly the worst pass defense that we have in the NFL right now this year. And we've already seen them get lit up a couple times in recent weeks by basically every quarterback that they've played. So that pretty much sums it up for our quarterback video for Week 10 here. Again, those are the guys that we're looking at. If you have money available, it's obviously not a bad idea to pay up for a guy like Tom Brady, who's in a good spot, or maybe even a Drew Brees in a good spot, or an Aaron Rodgers. You know, those guys are always in play if you have the money to pay up for them. The guys who we want to pick are some of the guys who we consider to be some of the best values, some of the guys who are kind of sliding under the radar. And you can bet that you're going to see a lot of these 4 quarterbacks on my rosters this weekend. So hopefully we'll be able to get up and make some big money here. I'd like to thank you guys for joining us over at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.